D-C-Y. But across the street, we have D.C. Easy to remember him, Washington, D.C. Let me tell you about J period, C period. The young lady recently divorced. Bought the house actually a few months before I bought my house. But she was lonely after her divorce, so she cajoled her mother to come and live with her. But Mom, even though she capitulated, she has her own life. So was frequently off doing her own thing. This didn't really assuage her sadness, so she proceeded to go out and buy some animals. She bought a big parrot, and then a cat, and 2 dogs. Well, one of the interesting things about parrots, frequently throughout the day, they squeak and squawk, which by itself was disconcerting, but the dogs went crazy and they barked and barked. This didn't work at night. During the day she could put up with it, but at night it kept her awake. So she decided she would share this experience with the neighbors. So every night at 7 o'clock, the dogs come outside. And when the parrot squawks, the dogs go barking in the neighborhood. Of course, everybody all around can hear. So that's JC. On the right is JC, J-A-C-E-Y. He's a very gregarious person. In 2 years, I've spoken 3 words to him. It's hot. His response, yup. Now, JC has 2 passions and loves in life: smoking cigarettes and drinking beer. In fact, he loves it so much that almost every weekend and all holidays, friends and neighbors come over and have a beer drinking contest. And they play volleyball. And apparently he's not very good at this beer drinking, because just about every Friday, one of his friends come over and they practice. There's one minor problem. When you've been drinking a lot of beer, your hand and eye coordination gets a little bit distorted. And they playing volleyball out there. And my wife and I love to sit out on our patio. But when they're playing volleyball, they're constantly hitting the ball against my fence. So we're sitting out here and we hear boom, then boom. That wouldn't be so bad. But when you're inebriated, you tend to get over enthusiastic and the ball frequently comes over into our yard. You'd think JC would come over and get his ball? Nah! He sends his 5-year-old son over here, who walks up and says, "Can I have my ball?" Now, how can you say no to this cute little 5-year-old? That's JC. Across the street from my house is DC. And his wife, DC's retired, but his wife isn't. As soon as his wife goes to work, you find DC in the back, in the front door, like this. So obviously you can tell that DC is the Yenta of the neighborhood. Richard, as our resident Yiddish expert, tell us what Yenta means.
Yenta is a Yiddish word, usually refers to a lady, usually elderly, usually Jewish, who has a big mouth, is a gossip, and is very good at telling you what you should be doing.
Well, DC is an expert at being a Yenta. And you can count on anything that's happening in the neighborhood that DC will be aware of. In fact, if a delivery truck shows up at your house, or a repairman, or you remodel it, you can count that DC will be outside checking it out, finding out everything that you're doing so he can repeat it and tell the rest of the neighborhood. something